we'll move to question time, and I'll call you again. Thank you, Senator Cash.
Thank you. And my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The bipartisan motion passed in this place in October of last year, following the Hamas terrorist attack of the 7th of October, which killed more Jews on a single day than any time since the Holocaust, said unequivocally that this parliament stands with Israel and recognises its inherent right to defend itself. Does the Prime Minister still stand by the entirety of this bipartisan resolution?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Cash for the question. And she would know that that motion was put by the Prime Minister and I in both chambers on a bipartisan basis, and it does recognise the continued right of the State of Israel to exist. We also spoke from memory in that statement about civilians, and you will recall, Senator, from the very first moment I called for restraint. And as I recall, a number of those opposite were very angry about that and said it was outrageous.
Order.
I know that Senator Cash, as we saw before and now, is obviously auditioning for Senator Birmingham's job. We all understand that. We all understand that. We moved the motion. What I would also say is we also stand for international humanitarian law and international law. We also stand for the application of international law and for international courts and tribunals, unlike those opposite. So, of course, we continue to support the right of the State of Israel to exist. We also say, as I have said,
Senator Cash, I've called you about 3 times. Senator Cash, come to order. Minister Wong, please continue.
As I also said, I think, on an Insider's interview last year, we are democracies. We hold ourselves to higher standards. We do not expect, nor do we believe Hamas will ever be anything other than a terrorist group dedicated to the destruction of the State of Israel. But as democracies, we also stand for the observance of international humanitarian law, which is contained in...
Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. And from Lebanon, Hezbollah continues to escalate cross-border attacks against Israel and continues to refuse to withdraw north of the Litani River, as required under UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Does the Albanese Labor government stand with Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah, a listed terrorist organisation under Australian law and whose motto is death to Israel?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Unlike Senator Cash, who seeks to come in here and try and run a domestic political argument, we have been working for months with others.
Senator Cash, you've asked the question. Please listen in respectful silence. Minister Wong, please continue.
Start again. Unlike Senator Cash, who wishes to play domestic politics in the Senate chamber with foreign policy.
Senator Cash, I did call you to order. Please come to order. Minister Wong. Order. Senator Cash. Senator Cash, you are being incredibly disorderly. Incredibly. Minister Wong.
We have been working with others to add our voice to trying to ensure that this conflict does not escalate. So it's not about beating your chest in the chamber. It's about trying to make sure we do all we can with others to prevent this conflict from escalating. Because, Senator Cash, I don't know if you are aware of what a conflict on the northern border would mean, both for Israel and for the
Senator Cash.
For Israel and for the citizens and civilians of the region, and all parties.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Given the Prime Minister's weakness on the Middle East is fracturing the Labor Party, will the Prime Minister guarantee his Labor government will not recognise a Palestinian state while Hamas and Hezbollah continue to pose a security threat to Israel?
Thank you. Before I call Senator Wong, order. Senator Patterson. Before I call Senator Wong, order. I am going to ask for silence across the chamber. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I think the Prime Minister has demonstrated his leadership these last weeks. Unlike Mr Dutton, who I see has failed to do so. The second point I would make is that we have, against your opposition, shifted Australia's position when it comes to the recognition of Palestine. We have said, unlike those opposite who say you have to wait to the end of a process when we know that has meant no progress on peace, we have said, alongside the United Kingdom and others, that we are willing to look to recognition as part of a peace process that leads to a just and enduring peace in a two-state solution. That is a principled position that the Australian Labor Party has taken. I regret that it is met by an unprincipled position by those opposite.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Marielle Smith.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Over the last 2 years, people in my home state of South Australia have benefited from cheaper childcare, fee-free TAFE and the biggest investment ever in expanding bulk billing, all delivered by the Albanese Labor government. Can the Minister please tell the Senate what further cost of living relief Australians can expect from today, including a tax cut for every taxpayer?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Smith. At least there are some senators in this place who care about the cost of living. At least there are some senators in this place who care about the cost of living. I mean, what does it say about the opposition that the first day of all of these tax cuts and cost of living relief, and what they want to focus on is an international issue that they want to make domestic politics over? Over here, we understand the #1 issue facing Australians is cost of living. We understand that. We on this side understand that. And that is why from today, Senator Smith, 13.6 million Australians will see more money going into their bank accounts as a tax cut to every Australian taxpayer is delivered. Not just some Australians, as the Liberals and Nationals would have liked. 3 million people earning less than $45,000 a year will get a tax cut. You didn't want that. Under you, they wouldn't have got a cent. A person earning 40 grand will get a tax cut of $654 compared to zero under you. The average family will save more than $3,200, and 9 out of 10 taxpayers, women taxpayers, 5.8 million women. 5.8 million women. I know it's hard, isn't it? We're actually delivering more to the women of Australia. I know that's hard for you. 5.8 million women will now receive a bigger tax cut than they would have received under you. And of course, we on this side want Australians to earn more and keep more of what they earn. So 2.6 million low-paid workers will get their third consecutive pay rise back by this government, and no amount of opposition from Senator Cash will remove that fact that you tried to shut down cost of living relief.
Senator Smith, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister, for that response. Can the Minister please explain to the Senate why the Albanese Labor government's tax cuts are bigger, fairer and will benefit all Australian taxpayers, not just some, as the Liberals and Nationals had intended?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Wong.
Thank you very much, Senator Smith and President. And what I'd say is that we on this side understand aspiration doesn't just start in the tax bracket, top tax bracket. those opposite seem to think nobody except those in the top tax bracket have any aspirations. 11.5 million people get a bigger tax cut compared with what those opposite proposed. And what has their response been? What has their response been? One, Mr Dutton called for an election over the tax cuts. The Liberals said they'd absolutely won them back. Deputy Leader Susan Lee said, "We will fight this legislation in the parliament." We know that those opposite just can't bear the fact we have delivered bigger and fairer tax cuts. Bigger and fairer tax cuts to Australians who are under pressure. You talk about it, but we are the ones who are delivering cost of living relief.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Thank you again for that response, Minister. Can you please provide more details about the Albanese government's $300 energy bill relief for every Australian household and $325 for small businesses? And I would also like to know how the government is providing energy bill relief now and setting up Australia's cleaner, greener, more reliable energy future.
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Wong.
Senator Smith, well, from today, the Albanese Labor government is taking $300 off power bills for every Australian household. In 2 decades, Mr Dutton wants to serve up the most expensive form of energy there is, and he's going to ask Australians to pay for it. Mr Dutton says, "I won't tell you how much it will cost. I won't tell you how much it will cost. I won't tell you how much more expensive your bills to be. I won't tell you how many reactors there will be." Well, you know what I'm going to just tell you? It's going to be a big bill. It's going to be a big bill. I'm not going to say how big the bill is. I'm just going to say it's going to be a big bill. This is an anti-renewables obsession that Mr Dutton has engaged in, that will provide would provide the most expensive power there is in 20 years' time. And all he's able to say, "Oh yeah, it's going to be a big bill." Well, we're delivering cost of living relief now.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Reports in The Australian last week revealed extremist group Hizb ut-Tahrir had issued a press release, which has since been deleted, which praised Hamas' 7 October attacks and urged neighbouring Muslim countries to attack and eliminate Israel. This comes after the UK government prescribed Hizb ut-Tahrir as a terrorist organisation in January. What steps has the Australian government taken to investigate the listing of Hizb ut-Tahrir as a terrorist organisation here?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
Thank you. First, I hope all of us would stand as one in condemning the hateful comments by the members of Hizb ut-Tahrir. There is no place in Australia for such disgraceful statements or the glorification of terrorism. In relation to the listing, as the Senator would know, and having been, or perhaps still is, I'm sorry, I can't recall, a member of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, you would understand the process by which advice is provided to government and to Parliament through the Statutory Committee about whether to list organisations, and I certainly wouldn't propose to speculate publicly about that process, nor would he expect it. But it does take me to a broader point about social cohesion. We all know that the conflict in Gaza, whether from October 7th, and as Senator Cash said, the largest loss of life, Jewish life since the Holocaust, or the tens of thousands, including tens of thousands of civilians who have died since, has been horrific. It has been horrific, and it is deeply distressing for so many in the Australian community, and it is incumbent upon us all to try and ensure that conflict is not imported here, both in word and deed, and in how we speak about one another. So all of us should join in condemning the words that Senator Patterson outlined, just as we should also ensure that we continue to advocate and press for peace in a region which has known so much loss of life and so much conflict.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Reports by 60 Minutes last month showed how Hizb ut-Tahrir had sought to recruit and radicalise students on our campuses, infiltrating pro-Palestinian protests to push anti-Semitic narratives and fan division. Will the government commit to taking other urgent action to address the crisis of anti-Semitism in Australia, which is undermining our social cohesion, and support our Jewish communities at their time of greatest need?
Minister Wong.
First, can I just also, in relation to the primary, remind Senator Patterson that the Coalition repeatedly rejected listing Hizb ut-Tahrir as a terrorist organisation when you were in government. In 2017, the then Attorney-General, Senator Brandis, rejected listing it based on the strong view of ASIO that it did not fit the definition of a terrorist organisation in the Criminal Code. The Leader of the Opposition has also affirmed that the government relies on the advice of our intelligence and security agencies, which is precisely what is being done in this matter. And I will take the interjections from Senator Ruston. If Senator Ruston thinks she knows better than our security and intelligence agencies when it comes to these matters, then perhaps she should stand up and say that. I, for one, think we look to the advice of those who are engaged and working to keep Australians safe about how best to do that, rather than making cheap political shots like that one.
Thank you, Minister. And I do remind you, Minister, to make your comments to the chair. Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Sunday Herald-Sun reported yesterday that Hizb ut-Tahrir had moved its UK operations to Australia in the wake of their ban in that country. Will the Albanese government stop Australia becoming a safe haven for this extremist organisation by joining our allies by listing Hizb ut-Tahrir as a terrorist organisation?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, I again refer to my earlier answer, which is, and again I'll take Senator Ruston's comments. She seems to think she knows more than our intelligence agencies. You know, I might have a view about, and others might have a view about, perhaps approaching this with a little more respect for the experts who advise us. But what I would say, this is not a political issue. This is a security issue. This is an intelligence issue. This is not an issue that is about party politics, and Senator Patterson knows that. Yep, he's been part of these processes. Well, he knows, and I have addressed the substance. I have addressed the substance, which is, we condemn the hateful comments. There's no place in Australia for this. We continue to take advice, as you did. We continue to take advice, as you did, from our security and intelligence agencies about
thank you,
whether
Minister.
to list organisations.
Has expired. Senator Faruqi.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Foreign Minister. Minister, for almost 9 long months now, we have witnessed Israel's full-blown genocide in Gaza, during which Israel has ruthlessly massacred close to 40,000 Palestinians, including around 15,000 Palestinian children. Israel has relentlessly bombed schools, hospitals, ambulances, universities and places of worship, even the tents where forcibly displaced Palestinians are taking refuge. Many thousands of Palestinians are missing or buried under the rubble. This year alone, your government has imposed autonomous sanctions on Russia, Iran and Myanmar. And yesterday, the Labour leadership shamefully sanctioned Senator Payman. When will you sanction Israel and the extreme Netanyahu government?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
Thank you. First, I want to make some comments about collective decision-making, which goes to the last part of your question. We believe collective decision-making is about a group being more powerful than any one individual. And that truth is demonstrated in the history of this nation. Our party in government is the only party that has delivered real progress in Australia on Medicare, on the minimum wage and fairness at work, on social welfare for older Australians and people with disabilities, on paid parental leave, on superannuation, on the Sex Discrimination Act, the Racial Discrimination Act, the abolition of the White Australia policy, Mabo land rights and the removal of discrimination against LGBTI Australians, and there is so much more. My point is collective discrimination, collective action, collective decision-making is central to that, We believe that Labor governments are the ones able to deliver change, which is why no Australian government has ever expressed such strong support for Palestinian statehood as this one. No Australian government has ever done so. And it's a position that has faced criticism from those opposite and those who want to support the status quo. But it's a position which reflects the approach that so many in the international community are taking. We also believe that we are not served well as a country by those who seek to bring the conflict here. See, nothing you do in this chamber will resolve the conflict, but it does bring it here, the division here. That is the reality, Senator. In relation to the actions taken, I am happy in my supplementary to go through the actions we have taken since October 2023.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Faruqi, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, your government has not taken any concrete action to stop Israel's genocide in Gaza, and turning against the people who are standing up for Palestine is not going to do anything either. You failed to join the South Africa's ICJ case. You failed to sanction Israel or expel the Israeli ambassador. The only concrete action you have taken is against those supporting Palestine. How many more Palestinians will be killed before you take concrete action?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Order. I'm waiting for order. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I understand why you want to run a political line here in this chamber.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Minister Wong, please resume your seat. I have called for order. That includes every single senator in this place, Senator Shoebridge and others. Minister, please continue.
As I said, on this side of the chamber, we have adopted the strongest support for Palestinian statehood in Australia's history. Well, yes, we have. Yes, we have. And unlike, you see, the difference between our party and the Greens and those opposite, unlike those opposite, we don't try to wake up every morning figuring out how to stand in the way of change. And unlike the Greens, we don't think that asserting moral superiority and condemning others delivers anything other than self-satisfaction. That's our view. That's our view. So the reality is this is a catastrophic conflict. You have seen us diplomatically make a range of decisions, including voting for...
Senator Faruqi, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, the difference between your party and mine is that we have the moral courage and you are cowards. You moved a motion at the Labour Party in 2021, a platform calling for the Labour government to recognise Palestine. But disgracefully, your government has voted against it twice already. And now you're punishing the only Labour MP who has had the courage to vote for recognising Palestine. How long must we wait before you join the 147 other countries
Faruqi,
and recognise Palestine?
The question has expired. Minister Wong.
Sorry, and I should say at the end of my last answer, I should have said we voted for a ceasefire and we voted to admit Palestine as a member of the United Nations. And I note what the Senator has said. What demonstrates, frankly, the Greens' political agenda is that last week they couldn't bring themselves to support this motion. The need for the Senate to recognise the State of Palestine as part of a peace process in support of a two-state solution and a just and enduring peace. I mean, what does it say about how much you are focused on political differentiation that you could not support that? You could not support that because all you want to do, Senator Faruqi and your colleagues, is to politically differentiate on this conflict, which is horrific. So it is clear you don't
Thank you, Minister. The
want
time
to make
for
progress
answering
on a
has
two-state
expired. Senator Walsh.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher.
Walsh. Order. Senator Ayres and Senator Shoebridge. Order. Order. Senator Walsh, please begin the question again and start the clock again.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Today is the day Australians will receive cost of living relief in the form of a tax cut. This will be crucial relief to households that are continuing to face cost of living pressures. The Albanese Labor government is supporting all Australians, not just some, as those opposite would have done. In addition to the tax cuts, can the minister please outline what other cost of living relief is being rolled out by the government from today? And how will these initiatives make life easier for Australians?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Walsh for the question and for focusing on the issues that matter to every Australian on cost of living. We know that Australians are under pressure, and in addition to the tax cuts that will go to every taxpayer in the country, the budget also delivered a further $7.8 billion in cost of living relief. So tax cuts from the 1st of July, 13.6 million Australians, not just some of them but all of them. 84% of taxpayers will be better off under Labor's plan. And on their payslip, Australians will see more money now thanks to those tax cuts, and more in the future thanks to some of the wage increases that the Labor government has argued for. And I know on this side of the chamber, many of us have worked in the union movement arguing for wage increases for working people. And of course we will see that with the minimum wage increases, but also some of the wage outcomes we're seeing across the care economy as well. $300 in energy bill relief for every household, every single household, $325 for 1 million small businesses, again to support them with their energy costs. We know that Australians are under pressure up and down the income scale, and the most efficient and most effective way to provide that energy bill relief is to provide it broadly. That's why it is being paid by applying a credit to everyone's bill by their energy retailers. So we know that will help, particularly in the winter months on the East Coast, where the energy costs often peak. We've also got other cost of living measures, a freeze on PBS medicine costs, increasing rent assistance by a further 10%, debt relief for students, paid super on government-paid parental leave will be coming in. We've got the extension of PPL as well. Of course, we're building homes for more Australians under our Housing Australia plan.
The time for answering has expired.
I had more to go.
Senator Walsh, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The government designed a budget that put downward pressure on inflation whilst providing cost of living relief to all Australians. Can the minister please update the Senate on the government's approach to managing the budget and how this has enabled us to provide cost of living relief that Australians need?
Thank you, Senator Walsh. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Walsh for the question. The numbers don't lie. We are managing the economy better than the coalition ever could. I know it hurts them. How many surpluses did the coalition deliver? How many, Senator Cash? I think it was a big fat zero, even though the mugs came out a bit early. Those mugs were taken back straight away, weren't they? Hide them in the bottom cupboard because, oops, we got it wrong. We've delivered a surplus. We're on track to deliver another one. Gross debt, remember that? Oh, geez, it peaked under the former government. It's much lower under us. It'll peak 9.7 percentage points lower than what the opposition forecast. So lower debt, surpluses. What about the interest on that debt? Much lower under us, $80 billion less in interest costs because we're managing the debt much better. Inflation remains a challenge, but we've almost halved annual inflation since we were elected, and of course wages growth is almost double.
The time has expired. Senator Walsh, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Of course, it's hard to know whether the coalition supports cost of living relief for all Australians because they are all negativity and uncosted ideas. Can the minister please outline any risks that may impact household budgets across Australia? Any risks, Minister?
Thank you, Senator Walsh. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I can think of one big risky proposal that springs to mind that might be uncosted, Senator Walsh. A big nuclear reactor plan, a risky nuclear reactor plan. Reactors all across the country, many reactors on one site, came out with a big launch and guess what? Not costed. Don't you know how much it's costing? Have you not done the work? Or have you done the work and you don't want to tell everybody what it costs? Maybe that's it. So these nuclear reactors going into all the states, uncosted, no idea how to deliver it, no understanding of the technology, no time frame other than it's off in the never, no 2030 target. If Senator Canavan has anything to do with it, it'll be no 2050 target either, and no idea what to do with the waste, no plan for right now, and not being clear about what it's going to cost on people's bills.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Wong. Minister, exactly how many wind turbines, solar panels, batteries and kilometres of transmission lines were built last month?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator. I don't have a monthly breakdown on what has occurred in terms of renewables since we came to government. But what I can say to you is that it is clear. What I can say to you is that we have invested $22.5 billion over the next decade to help make Australia a renewable energy superpower. We have a budgeted plan that is backed by the experts at AEMO, the Australian Electricity Market Operator. They have an integrated systems plan that looks at the total cost out of 2050 in generation, storage and transmission of renewable energy, which the government is working to and is contributing to. I would also make the point, Senator, and you do understand markets, that the uncertainty under the coalition meant that 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure. We did not have new investment to replace it at the scale needed. And that is because the market knew that with 20-plus energy policies, there was no certainty in which to enable investment in additional generation and supply. And if we want to bring prices down and to ensure reliability, we have to have more supply.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Minister, the government's own figures to meet your net zero target show that over the next 8 years you need to install and connect more than 40 wind turbines a month, 22,000 solar panels a day, 48 gigawatt hours of batteries and 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines. Install and connect. You're building nothing near that. Will you admit your wind and solar plan is an unachievable pipe dream?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Wong.
Senator Roberts, I will absolutely concede that this is a big transition, and you would have heard me in response. You would have heard me in response.
Order. Senator Rennick, I've called Senator Canavan. Order. Order. Minister, please continue.
You would have heard me, Senator, when the Greens asked me.
Senator Watt, order. 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 I would ask senators to not call out across the chamber. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you. You would have heard me, Senator, say to the Greens when they seek higher targets that this is a big transition. We accept that. The advice I have, and I'll see if I can get anything further, is that we have had a 25% increase in renewable generation in the national electricity market since 2022. We have 4.6 gigawatts of new generation and storage, which is part of the operator's outlook since their last report. We've had 6.8 gigawatts of new generation, up from 4.2 gigawatts approved. 27 utility-scale batteries are under construction as at the end of 2023, and 5.9 gigawatts.
Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, unlike with coal mines, there's no obligation for industrial wind and solar sites to rehabilitate the land. The cost of pulling down wind and solar is left completely with landowners and farmers who have no idea what they're signing up for. Minister, does your wind and solar plan rely on saddling farmers with the entire cost of disposal, or will your government legislate rehabilitation bonds for wind and solar projects?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Wong.
Senator, what I would say to you is that there has been a lot of investment and a lot of interest from Australians, both in terms of investors but also landowners and landholders, to be part of this transition. It is true that there are a lot of challenges associated with it, including investment in transmission, which is one of the reasons why the government is working on both increasing the flexibility of the system and also ensuring that more capacity is delivered across the country. For example, our capacity investment scheme has delivered over 32 gigawatts of capacity. We've had the largest ever single tender for renewable energy, which is currently open for bids. In relation to your issues, I don't have advice on.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Senator Watt. Can the minister confirm what scientific evidence the government has based its decision to ban the live sheep export trade by sea, which will severely impact over 3,000 Western Australian jobs, along with the livelihoods of Western Australian farmers and regional communities?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Well, the issues around animal welfare when it comes to the live sheep export by sea industry have been debated at length over a number of years, and I noticed that in the most recent report on the state of the live export sector commissioned by LiveCorp, the Research and Development Corporation that oversees or works with the live export industry, even its survey acknowledged that mortalities amongst sheep being taken by sea to the Persian Gulf are significantly higher than they are, for example, for live cattle exports. So even the industry's own methodology and own surveys demonstrate that there do remain serious animal welfare issues involving the live sheep export industry when it comes by sea. But beyond that, what we're doing in legislating an end to the exports of live sheep by sea is delivering on an election commitment. We're delivering an election commitment that was voted for not only by those on the east coast of Australia, but was voted for by those on the west coast of Australia
Minister
as
Watt,
well.
please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie.
Chair, on relevance, I asked about scientific evidence.
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. You also went to jobs and farmers, so the minister is being relevant to the question. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. I would submit that I've actually addressed that issue in the earlier part of my answer. Now, as I was saying, this is an election commitment that we took to not just one but two elections, and we now are delivering on that election commitment as Australians would expect us to do so. And as I say, this is a commitment that was not only supported by those on the east coast of Australia, but the most recent surveys published demonstrate that 70% of Western Australians support this commitment as well. We are acknowledging that this will be a significant change for many in the industry, and that's why the government is putting forward a $107 million transition package to assist the industry make this transition, a transition package that is being contributed to by every single Australian taxpayer, whether they live on the east or west coast of Australia. We know that this is an industry that's been in long-term decline, even under the coalition government, and the numbers of sheep being exported by sea have fallen by 90% over the last 20 years.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
Given Senate estimates highlighted that there is no economic modelling to support the ban's timeframe, will the minister concede that there is no way of knowing what the impact of this ban will have on Western Australian farmers, workers, regional communities and the Australian economy?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Well, of course I reject what Senator Mackenzie is putting forward, and we do have to note the hypocrisy of the National Party in making this last-ditch effort to defend an industry that actually declined significantly when it was in office. In 2014-15, Australia exported 2.1 million sheep by sea at a value of $224 million. In 21-22, 475,000 sheep were exported.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie.
On relevance, Madam President, my question was very specific about economic modelling on the closure of a legal industry.
Yes, Senator Mackenzie.
Minister, but it became clear it wasn't
Senator Mackenzie,
done.
please resume your seat. You've called your point of order. Your question also went to farmers, workers regional community and all Australians. So the Minister is being relevant. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. So as I say, the Nationals are being incredibly hypocritical on this point. While they were in office, the number of live sheep exported by sea fell by 80% while they were in office. And now, of course, that they're in opposition, they're the biggest supporters of live sheep exports that you've ever seen. They had the opportunity to do something about this when they were in office, and they did do something about it. They sent this trade down by 80%. And, of course, some of their senators in particular stood up for that policy. We know that now Senator Henderson, the former member for Corangamite, said in answer to this question, the time has come, backed by the science, the facts and the economics. This is an industry which must come to an end. The live live exported sheep to the Middle East is inhumane and must come to an end. That's what
Senator Minister Watt, I called you. I'm waiting for order. Order. Senator Wong. Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary. Order. I have a senator on her feet, ready to start her question. Order. Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary.
Will the minister concede that Labor is callously throwing away the livelihoods of Western Australian farmers, workers and regional communities to cynically capture the preferences of extreme animal activist groups like the Animal Justice Party, who boast about being proud that they demanded the end of the live sheep export trade as a requirement for their preferences?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Well, the short answer is no, but the longer answer is that far from treating this industry and its members callously, this government is providing $107 million in support to support the transition for an industry that has been in decline for 20 years.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie, ask your question and then listen in silence. Minister Watt, please continue.
Under Labor, an industry that's in decline receives $107 million in taxpayer support. Under the Coalition, an industry that was in decline the entire time they were in office, guess how much you contributed? Zero. Absolutely zero. Not 1 cent to support an industry that was in decline in the time that they were in power.
Yes, Minister Wong. Yes, Senator Mackenzie. You've made a contribution this morning. I invite you, Senator Mackenzie, to make a contribution at any other point, Senator Mackenzie, during the sitting of the Senate, but not question time. You've asked your question. The minister is entitled to answer. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, President. And the reason the Coalition provided no support whatsoever to an industry in decline is because they had members like the now Deputy Liberal leader Susan Ley and now Senator Henderson saying the sensible path for both sides of the debate to construct a carefully considered transition to ending the trade permanently and across all months of the year. Tastes are changing in Middle Eastern nations. There is no fixed firm demand for live sheep. We believe in a permanent...
Senator Cox.
President, my question is for the Leader of the Government, Senator Wong, representing the Prime Minister. Today, Australia's newest Governor-General spoke about Australia's history being made up of 3 chapters: the Indigenous foundations of 65,000 years, the arrival of British institutions, and our multicultural present and future. This week, the Greens will introduce a bill for Australia's first Truth and Justice Commission to formally record the first chapter and ongoing injustices. The government took the path last year for constitutional reform on a voice to Parliament, and since then there have been crickets on implementing the other 2 pillars of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Will the government support the Greens bill on Australia's first Truth and Justice Commission?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Cox, and I'll try and deal with a few issues. The first is the reference by Her Excellency the Governor-General of Australia today to Noel Pearson's framework, which talks about our First Nations heritage, our British institutions and, of course, our multicultural society, particularly post-World War II, and that the large-scale migration to Australia. I am, and we are, as a government, very committed to telling the full story of Australia. Certainly in my own portfolio, as you would be aware, that's something we seek to bring to how we engage with the world. We obviously, it was much of the the thinking behind the referendum, as you know, at the request and urging of many Indigenous First Nations leaders, obviously was part of that. Now, what I would say to you, rather that in relation to Greens bills, you're entitled to move private senators' bills, as you know. We don't actually think whether or not those bills are not the way in which progress is made in this or in any other area of policy. But I would say to you that I think support for reconciliation is a core value, core Labor value. It is a value, I think, that is shared by Australians. Australians do believe in the fair go and do want to close the gap. The government remains determined to move reconciliation forward and to seek better results for Indigenous Australians as we take the time that is needed to get Makarrata and truth-telling right. And I think the fact the result of the referendum demonstrates that that is the case. The work of treaty does go on at a state and territory level, and there will be a diversity of processes respecting the diversity.
Senator Cox, first supplementary.
Partisan support to the Republic across the political spectrum, and that polling shows 50% of Australians support a republic, a measure that would help us move beyond the colonial chapter of history. Will the government commit to a republic in their second term of government?
Order. 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 Order across the chamber. Senator Cox, that is a bit of a stretch as a first supplementary, but I will invite Senator Wong to address the question.
Senator, with respect...
Order.
Senator, with respect, there isn't bipartisan support on a republic. Well, with respect, there isn't. I think we've been on record, I've been on record many years as being a supporter of republic, but there is not bipartisan support. And we are, what we know from history, as opposed to talking about it in this place, that constitutional reform is hard. And it is particularly hard. We're in a hyper-partisan world where we know that there is no way that Mr Dutton, whose reflex is always to say no and always to be negative and always to run a scare campaign, would be supportive of it. And I'll take the interjection. He says correct. I mean, they're not going to be supportive of it.
Thank you, Minister Wong. The time for answering has expired. Order. Senator Cox, second supplementary.
President, the new Governor-General talked about the Australian character and its fundamental democratic spirit in her speech today. Will this government commit to moving beyond the colonial era in a truly democratic one that includes the voices of First Nations people and by ending the reign of unelected heads of states and having a treaty with its First Peoples?
Before I call the minister, I'm going to ask for silence once again. Senator Mackenzie, order. Order, seriously. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I have a great deal of sympathy for the sorts of principles you're describing, but I also know that change is hard, and change requires us to bring people with us, and change requires ultimately not just the support of the majority of a parliament, but the majority of the Australian community, and we have a way to go on some of the issues you've raised. I hope there will come a day where we look back and we say, well, we did well to keep walking down the path of reconciliation together after the referendum. And certainly we do need and do want to move forward on many of the issues such as Makarrata and treaty in the way you described. Obviously, treaty. There's a lot of work being done on treaty processes in states and territories.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Mr Watt. Cost of living pressures are top of mind for all Australians, especially low-paid workers. I note that since taking office, the Albanese Labor government has advocated on behalf of low-paid workers in 3 consecutive Fair Work Commission annual wage reviews. How does the Albanese Labor government's agenda ease cost of living pressures and make sure Australians are earning more and keeping more of what they earn?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. And isn't it good that at least one senator on this side of the chamber has an interest in cost of living issues? Because we know that over this entire question time,
Minister Watt.
what have the coalition asked about?
Minister Watt.
What have the coalition asked about?
Minister
the Middle
Watt.
East, terrorist
Order.
listings.
Order. 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 Senator Cash, I've called order 3 times. Senator Scarr.
President, personal reflection. I ask Senator Watt to withdraw that personal reflection on all the other senators except the one.
Senator Scarr. Order. Senator Scarr, when I'm bringing the chamber to order, Senator McKenzie, it's not helpful for you to stand and make a joke. Seriously, it is not. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. I know the opposition doesn't want to talk about cost of living issues, but I'm glad that Senator Sheldon joins with Senator Smith and Senator Walsh in asking questions about the issue that is of most concern to Australians today, which is cost of living issues. It seems that the opposition has to ask a question about anything else other than the thing that Australians are most concerned about, being their cost of living issues. And we know that is why, and that is because the coalition's record in office is of delivering lower wages and worse standard of living, a record they have maintained in opposition.
Please resume your seat. Order. Order. Thank you. Minister Watt, please continue.
That Senator Cash is a lot more noisy when she's sitting in that chair rather than when she's sitting in the one about a metre behind Senator Cash. Why would that be, Senator Cash?
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. I'll come to you, Senator McKenzie. Senator Cash. Senator Cash. Minister Watt, may I remind you to direct your comments to the chair and Senator McKenzie.
On a point of order, I was also going to request that instead of pointing across the chamber and screaming, he makes his comments through the chair.
Senator McKenzie, order, order, order. As you noted, Senator McKenzie, I had already brought that to the minister's attention. I'm waiting for order. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And, President, I'm sure you can observe the opposition is a bit touchy today. And why would they be touchy? That's because today is the day that Australians are getting much-needed cost of living relief. That's right. And we know the opposition is touchy about this because they voted against almost every one of those cost of living measures that comes into place today. So no wonder they're touchy. No wonder they don't want to talk about cost of living. But you know what? Labor does, because we're concerned about the cost of living issues facing Australians. And that's why from today, every Australian taxpayer gets a tax cut, not just some. That's why from today our $300 energy bill relief begins to flow to every Australian household. And that's why from today 2.6 million low-paid workers will get their 3rd consecutive pay rise, backed by this government, unlike what we saw from the coalition. This government has gone into bat for low-paid workers not once, not twice, but 3 times every single year we've been in office since we came into government. And because of this government's advocacy, from today, minimum wage earners will be earning $24.10 per hour compared to $20 when we first came to office.
Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
Given that Mr Dutton and the Liberals and Nationals voted against all our legislation to get wages moving, how has the Albanese Labor government secured jobs better pay legislation, getting wages moving after 10 years of deliberate wage suppression by the coalition?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Well, the Albanese Labor government's Secure Jobs Better Pay legislation is delivering, with nearly 500,000 more workers covered by enterprise agreements and award workers benefiting from $10,000 pay rises. We said that our Secure Jobs Better Pay laws would fix the bargaining system, and now we're seeing the proof. And we know the opposition went running for cover when we just simply tabled that legislation. Secure Jobs Better Pay. Oh no, we can't have that. We can't have that in Australia. We're going to vote against it. just like we're going to vote against energy bill relief, just like we're going to vote against cheaper medicines, just like we're going to vote against every measure that the Labor government put up to assist Australians with their cost of living. More importantly than listening to anyone in this chamber, let's listen to the difference that these changes are making to real workers in Australia. For Laura, an aged care worker from Western Australia, who will now be about $3,400 better off, it means she can pay for home internet and what she describes as luxuries like social outings. Labor is supporting people like Laura while you're voting against them.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
In the face of cost of living pressures, I note that the Liberals and Nationals have endorsed a risky industrial relations policy and expensive energy policy that won't deliver a thing for 2 decades. How are the Albanese government's reforms helping Australians earn more and keep more of what they earn while relieving cost of living pressures, and why are these reforms so important?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. I'm not calling the minister until there is silence. Order. Order. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. And the Albanese Labor government does care about cost of living, and that's why it's our #1 focus. Not in 20 years, not in 1, not in 2 years, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, or even 20 years, when your nuclear fantasy will deliver more expensive power to Australians. We're delivering cost of living support right now from today.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Wong.
The acting leader of the opposition could perhaps at least draw breath and not yell for the entirety of the answer.
Order. Order.
Doesn't. That's true. But you need
Senator
some...
Cash. Order. Senator Wong. Order. 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 I would like all... Order. Senators Wong and Cash. Order. Senator Cash, I would like, led by you and those noisy senators, I think they know who they are, the ones I've called today, to listen in respectful silence. Minister Watt, please continue.
President, we make no apologies as a Labor government for wanting to deliver higher wages and real tax relief. And meanwhile, what we know about the coalition, the Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor has said that he's committed to a targeted package of repeals to our workplace relations changes, and we know that Senator Cash, as the Shadow IR spokesperson, has endorsed the risky New South Wales Liberals industrial relations platform. We know Senator Cash used to talk about what our policies would be taking Australia back to the dark ages. Senator Cash prefers simpler times when children were chimney sweeps, we had dark satanic mills. That's the kind of times that Senator Cash wants to take us through, and we're going to stop you from doing it.
Order. I'm waiting for order. I'm waiting for order. You've got one of your own senators on her feet. Senator Chandler.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Minister Watt. 2 weeks ago, the Canadian government listed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity, joining our security and intelligence partner, the United States, in confirming that the IRGC is a terrorist organisation actively involved in planning and carrying out terror attacks. Minister, if the Trudeau government can act to list the IRGC, why can't the Albanese government?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Chandler. Well, the short answer, Senator Chandler, as you've been informed previously when you've asked similar questions, is because the Australian government relies on the advice of Australian security agencies when making our decisions about terrorist listings. Now, as Senator Chandler and many of her colleagues have been advised in many previous question times, from the government's point of view, we believe that the IRGC is a malignant actor that has long been a threat to international security. The Gillard government understood this and put broad-based sanctions on the IRGC as a whole in 2010, and the Albanese government has also recognised the threat that they present. That's why we are using the tools available to us to take meaningful action, including the government sanctioning 63 IRGC-linked individuals and 56 IRGC-linked entities. Now again, as Senator Chandler, Senator Patterson and various others on that side of the chamber know, listings under the Criminal Code apply to non-state actors and not to state actors. That was exactly the same regime that applied when they were in government. But now they don't want to follow the same process as what they followed when they were in government. They want to apply a different standard and different tests to what they were prepared to do when they were the government. These are exactly the same listing provisions that applied when those opposite were in government, and they have not changed. The reality is that the IRGC is a part of the Iranian state, and state actors under Australian law cannot be listed as terrorist organisations. So what I've heard coming from some of those opposite is a bit rich, and we just hear Senator Scarr say change the law. He was here for a few years. Did he change the law? No, he didn't. But he and his colleagues just want to sit back now and take cheap shots at a government that is following exactly the same process as what they did when they were in office, and they will do everything possible to avoid talking about cost of living changes, including those that come into force today, July the 1st. They will do anything to avoid talking about tax cuts and cost of living relief, even asking questions about things they did nothing about in office.
Senator Chandler, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, at Senate estimates, it was confirmed that in January 2023, the Department of Home Affairs was developing a nomination form and statement of reasons in preparation for a listing of the IRGC. What are the reasons the Department of Home Affairs was seeking to have the IRGC listed as a terrorist organisation in January 2023?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Chandler. Well, all I can do is repeat my previous answer, which is that in making its decisions about terrorist listings, the Albanese government relies on the advice of our security agencies, but it is also very well understood under this government and the previous government that terrorist listings are not applied to state actors such as the IRGC. The Albanese government has no time whatsoever for the IRGC. That is why we have imposed sanctions on 63 IRGC-linked individuals and 56 IRGC-linked entities. We are following the same process as applied under the former government, and they never seemed to have a problem when they were in government.
Senator Chandler, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The IRGC are not only perpetrators of terrorism, but they are known to use extremist anti-Semitic ideology to recruit and spread hatred. Hatred which is spreading in the Australian community. Minister, will the government today finally commit to developing options to enable the IRGC to be listed as a terrorist organisation?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. My understanding is that the opposition has actually been briefed on these very issues that they are now asking questions about in question time. And I agree with Senator Chandler in one respect, and that is when she says that the IRGC are a malignant actor. They are a dreadful organisation that we do not support whatsoever. But the opposition had no issues about this process when they were in government, when they had 10 years to do something about the process, but all of a sudden they're now in opposition. They want to apply a different standard to the government.
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.